Alright guys, so this is the long-awaited part 2. There's been a lot going on in my life recently, and so it's mostly good stuff, and just, I've taken up pottery, and I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to relearn my limits as far as getting out of the house, and all of that, because a long time I really haven't had any place to go, and now I've got something to do, and finding where my limits are now at where I'm at, and how far I can push my leash, so to speak. So I can't remember quite where we left off, but I know we kind of left off where things were kind of bad, and things did get fairly bad, at least emotionally. And so we did end up moving out of my mom's house, and we found a place to rent for a year, and things were pretty good there. We didn't really make too much progress. Most of my videos over the past year were at that house, and my studies really kind of slowed down, and I didn't have that all-consuming drive to find everything, and I didn't really have as much to say as I had previously, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Things in my marriage were fairly peaceful. The kids were okay. There was a lot going on because my daughter was a senior in high school this last school year, and so her senior year got cut short after they left on spring break, and they never went back to school. So that was, a bummer for her. And then we ended up moving April 17th into our new place, which is actually just a couple miles down the road from the place we were. And it's completely flat. It's 4 acres. That's all flat. We are completely fenced in. And we have enough room for our chickens and our goats. And it's land that's completely usable, and that's small enough that we can take care of it. And that not all of the work is going to have to fall on my husband when he gets off of his job. So after having settled in for a while, around just before Sukkot, I was really struggling health-wise. And I go through times like this when the weather changes and stuff. It really is very hard on me physically. I don't know exactly what triggers it, but it happens in the spring and the fall, and when we have really hard weather changes, like when we have a huge snowstorm or something moving in. So anyway, I figured out through Sukkot and through a period where I wasn't sleeping, my medicine wasn't working, and I leaned into God more than I ever had. And a lot of things fell into place. And I finally understood the why I was walking Torah, and not just because he told me to do it. And I kind of had the head knowledge of, okay, I'm doing this because he told me to, and then, he'll keep his end of the bargain. But at that point, it kind of came full circle and landed in my heart. My husband participated in Sukkot for the first time this year. He actually played a video that he'd been watching from Bear Independent, and he played the Sukkot video, and it was about, well, what do you do on Sukkot? And he actually helped plan activities. And my husband's not one to say, I'm going to give this a shot. He just started doing the work and figuring out how to love your neighbor and how to love God, and that he can still do all those things and not have to be a cookie cutter church Christian, because that's always been very hard for my husband, that he doesn't, he's rough around the edges. He's not Mr. Spiffy suit and tie Sunday morning churchgoer. He never has been. And I've never been able to reach out to him and say, look, you can still serve God where you are. And God made you for a reason the way you are. And so now I've really noticed that, yes, my husband's dealing with some residual anger over trauma over the past 20 years of our marriage, which, I am too. But we're getting to a point where we can work through it calmly and together, and we can listen to each other, and we can serve each other, you know, because that's always been very hard for us, is figuring out how we can serve each other with, he's got limited time and I've got limited physical resources. So how do we meet that in the middle? And he's starting to figure that out. And just the joy that he's showing in being able to do a few small things or understand something that I've been talking about for years that's finally clicked with him. And, just realizing that God has him in his job and he's reaching out to people and he's helping people just by being a decent person. He's a UPS driver. I know I've talked about it before. And I mean, God has really used him to take care of the widows and the orphans out there, especially during this pandemic nonsense. And we're starting to see that even though, Satan's lobbed a few arrows at us over the past few months, everything's working out just fine. And I had all of that really click. And I had the absolute assurance, not just in my head saying, okay, God's going to get us through whatever it is. And we'll get, if we need manna from heaven to eat, he'll get it. To absolutely knowing in my heart that that was what was going to happen. And Levi, out. I'm doing a video, dude. Sorry. So, even when things get a little tough, we are finding workarounds. Our flocks are thriving. We've had a few chickens picked off, but for the most part, we had a few extra chickens to spare. God has blessed the health of my flocks. And, for the first time ever, I actually got to speak on the phone with a Torah believer in my area that is actually not part of, there's actually a cult. I hate to say that, but it's an offshoot of the Assemblies of God Church, where they convince their people to tithe up to a third of their income to the church. And yes, they keep Torah, but that doesn't sound quite like the plan in the book. So we do have one of those around here too. And that was I was kind of excited to hear about that. And then I got to looking into it. I was like, ooh, nope. So anyway, and my husband has actually filled in and taught Bible study a few times when I've been sick. He has found Bible study lessons. He really likes Bear Independent. And I think Bear's actual name is TJ Morris. And he's got a lot of resources on prepping and Bible study. He does, he's working through the prophets. He's already gone through the Torah, and he's going through the Brit Hadashah, or the New Testament also. So, like, when I couldn't read whatever chapter we were working on, he would find the chapter that Bear had already done, and he'd play that with the kids, and the kids understand it. And he even ordered the scripture, which is the Bible that Bear uses on his broadcast, and they sell it at cost. If you don't have the cost, they can get it to you for free. And it has all the Hebrew names restored, and it has some of the translation issues fixed, but it's in very, very simple language, so it's a little bit easier than the Et Sefer for my kids. And he got everybody one, and he's reading his. So that's even better. And he's going through these studies on his own and figuring out how to put them into action with the kids and with me. And, I'm finding myself encouraged to be able to give more back to him and to be able to share some of my emotional struggles with him that I haven't felt safe to share with him because he wouldn't understand, because he just didn't have a perspective where me sharing that type of thing would be beneficial to him. And by that, I mean, I think it would stress him out more that he couldn't fix what was going on with me. And that would just frustrate him more, and his plate was really, really full. And so I've been able to share some of those things with him. And, I've really stuffed my emotions for the past 3 years. I was just in a phase, as I always told my kids, that we were in the wilderness. We'd lost our house. We were living in my husband and I's room was set up in my mom's garage, and my kids had the bedrooms in my mom's house, and we lived there for 2 years. And, then, as I kept telling my mom, it's like, we're going around the mountain in the wilderness. And I stuck to the Torah. I stuck to it, and I didn't understand everything. I understood the ins and outs of working the law like math equations. And you do this because of this reason. But I wasn't at the point where I was seeing the blessings of it yet, and having the assurance that I was doing it right enough to get those blessings. I had that head knowledge thing saying God knows where you're at and he appreciates the effort, which is absolutely true, but I didn't feel it in my heart. So my prayer had become, God, whatever's coming, let us be worthy to escape. And whatever that means, whether it's a rapture scenario, whether it's a second Exodus scenario, or whether we just don't suffer before our lives are ended in a way that serves you the best. Just let us be worthy to escape. And I kept praying that and praying that and praying that. And over the course of me, not sleeping for a while and figuring out when my body starts going haywire, God has something to say. And I can meditate on him through that. And my brain picks back up speed, and I'm able to understand what he's trying to show me or tell me. And I'm able to pray for people. And, I have confidence in being able to talk to people about my faith now. Because in the past, I always felt like I don't reach out to people. If God brings somebody to me, I will totally share anything and everything that they will let me share. But that I don't go out hunting for people. I wasn't fishing a whole lot. And now I have a new boldness where I can reach out to people, because I absolutely know I'm doing God's things in God's way to the best of my ability. Yes, there's more I would like to accomplish, but I got completely through my first Torah cycle. I'd always listen to the Torah portions and stuff, but I didn't necessarily keep up with it on schedule. And this year, I just got the first 5 books out of the way. I think within 2 weeks, because my memory issues, I thought that the Torah cycle rolled over at the new year that starts in with Passover, and not the one, the harvest cycle that ends in Sukkot. So I was like, I couldn't remember what I'd read and what I hadn't read this year. So I just listened to them all and got through all of them in, I guess, about 4 or 5 days. And, I understood everything they were saying. There was no confusion. I wasn't guessing on anything. And it's even, I even have such a clarity when I sit down and read the word. And I can look at situations and see, okay, this is going to work because of this, and this is not going to work because of that. And even so much as understanding when to pray that God takes my enemies out, and how to do that without in a righteous way. It's called imprecatory prayer. Take on the World TV has a really good video on that a gentleman put out. And I think that's really important for our time, because we do need to hit our knees and pray. We have a very interesting window of opportunity here. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we could sail through this fairly easily. There is a big possibility that the bomb, the nuclear bomb Satan was planning, is going to be a firecracker that fizzles out. We have all of this media lying to us, but people are waking up to it. And we have a unique opportunity to point out they've been doing this for years. And we've been herded in this direction. And so many people are open and awake to what's going on in the world. And we can go about this in a bold manner, but understand, I suddenly, with all of this, had clarity that the people that are celebrating Christmas doesn't mean they're not saved. God will accept that worship, and they're not going to hell because of it, And I don't believe in the Catholic version of hell. I believe in the lake of fire, and that's a one-time event. But he would definitely prefer that we not do that. And if we can approach people in love and say, okay, you're basically giving a gift from Baal, or Bali, that was his special day and his special presence, and you've scratched out his name and forced God to come to you on that day and give him the present that you really mean for Baali. And it's not very nice. We need to love God how we would want to be loved and respected if we were in his shoes. And we need to start thinking about God in a way that is very childlike. And whether or not, I had a really good relationship with my dad. I know other people out there didn't. But consider his feelings. Consider him as a person. We may not understand the fullness of God, but ask to be made into somebody that can be his friend. Be bold in that. When I did that, I was actually praying about something, and God revealed a bunch of stuff to me. And, it's a vision that I'm still sorting through. And the contents of it, is not, it was just between me and him, cosmology stuff and things like that I was curious about. And he showed me how lonely he's been and how much pain he was in. And, just out of, wow, that sucks, I asked if I could be his friend, because I'm very good at loving people. And of course, then I was like, oh, maybe I overstepped myself and said, all right, God, if I'm not worthy to be your friend, then make me into somebody worthy to be your friend. And that if you need something, if you need to talk, whatever it is, come to me and I'll be here for you. And I think we forget to serve God in that manner, not just be his hands and his feet, but to serve God as a friend, as a loving child, as a child that's grown up enough, that's become a parent's friend. Yes, God is still the ultimate authority in my life. He's not become, the friend mom or the friend dad. But, the offer's out there. We want to put God in this tiny, cleaned up Christian box that has him homogenized into a very, very small portion of his character. Very small. But our God is perfect, like a mountain range is perfect. Mountain ranges are made of volcanoes, they are made of rushing rivers, they're made of small streams and mountain lakes, and the beautiful deer, the deadly lions. It's got a lot of rough edges. God is not made from human polished stones and human manufactured prefabbed altars. He's not like that. And people are saying, oh my gosh, you keep the law because you have to. No, I don't. I am under no obligation to keep the law. I do it because A, Jesus did it. And we're supposed to, as a disciple, do exactly what Jesus did, the way he did it, so that we learn how to do it and why he's doing it, so that we can go on and do his work and then do greater works than what he did. Okay? Am I under obligation to do that? No. Matthew 5:17 clearly explains that if you break the law and teach others to do so, you will be the least in the kingdom. I don't know what the least is in the kingdom, but I'm a chronic overachiever as far as school is concerned. And I'd rather be an overachiever for Jesus than, and be a vessel of honor instead of a vessel of dishonor. That's the difference between maybe a cooking pot or a flower pot or a pot that holds anointing oil and a shit pot. Everybody's got to poop, but I don't want to be the pot that has to deal with that. So we need to understand that yes, those people are saved, but they're going to get the Cliff Notes trial by fire the 10 days before they hit that wall of, okay, you're going to be in prison for 10 days and then you're going to be executed. I would like to avoid that. But they're going to get the quick version of all of this. And those of us that are out here fighting and have been seeking God out completely by his call, but then we put in the determination and the work and the steady practice of his things, that we've already done this part. So we are going to be hopefully honored that we've put the work in and we don't have to be purified through martyrdom. And this is my idea on the fact. The 10, you've got the 10 virgins and the 5 wise virgins.